Walt, you are an amazing writer. I love what you have done in The Long November, and I got to start it off by saying this is a book without a movie. It needs to be on Netflix. It needs to be on a big screen. It needs to be somewhere.
Well, thank you. I would certainly like to see it as a movie also. I know I did a podcast recently where Ron Howard had also done a podcast there sometime in the past. So I'm hoping maybe he listens to a few of the podcasts on that show. I could see it as a movie.
Yeah. The way that you build scenes, I mean, it is so patient for the reader because sometimes they'll go so fast and you're going, what happened here? How did this happen? And then it may not get us to the next page, but you have that opportunity to give us that chance to, slowly turn the page so that we can keep digesting the storyline.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do my best.
How does it come to you, a story like this? Because, I mean, one of the things that kind of really, they kind of scared me, making Pakistan a nuclear power. To me, that's just another page in the axis of evil.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's another page in the let's be very concerned pile. Mm-hmm. Pakistan became a nuclear power in 1998. The Chinese helped them develop the weapons, and I say in the book they have about 200, but in reality it's more like 165, but that's close enough, But I'm never sure how I come up with any ideas, but I kind of like to look at history and say, what if I brought this forward to now? I kind of look for areas that I don't think Americans are very aware of. Things like that, and just the ideas just come to me. I've never really understood where they come from. I think a lot of writers would probably tell you that, but it's just they just appear, and then usually I'm a very free-flowing writer. I don't outline much at all. Typically, I know the beginning of the book, the end of the book, and everything in between just shows up as I go along. Pakistan, what is an area of concern that we don't pay much attention to.
Yep.
And so it just seemed like a likely place for me to go.
The perfect place, because the whole world is watching each other right now. And what you do is you introduce Pakistan in a way of going, oh, let me step back here for a moment and pull that lens back to see what else is going on.
Right.
Because if it's not on the front page of the newspaper, if they're not talking about it on the NBC Nightly News, then we don't know about it. But at least you have planted a seed here for us to become students.
That was part of the goal. Yeah, like I said, I like to. My first novel, for example, The Red Line, was about Russian aggression into Central Europe and the Americans having to end up facing them. And I wrote that well before the Putin went into Ukraine. So I like to kind of project out and say, like I said, what if?
Yep.
And then just try to put that on paper.
Isn't that what writing is all about? It's answering our what if is what brings people together in the community as readers, and then that creates a conversation.
That's the way I look at it. One of the things when I get into writing, I just felt like there was too much what I call days.
Yeah.
That is, it doesn't have a lot of substance. It feels good going down, but 2 hours later you're hungry again. So I like to write stuff with some meat on the bones, some books that will give the reader, if they want to, the opportunity to ponder and consider and just actually get in there and chew on the story and enjoy it. I want to make sure I'm entertaining. If I don't entertain you, then I don't have a right to expect you to read it. But I try to be very entertaining, but I also try to give you some meat on the bones, give you some things where you could actually think about things. That's the way books used to be.
Yeah.
And it just seems like, there's still some that way, but most, like I said, are what I call fast food writing.
My father would call a book like The Long November and even The Red Line. He because he served in World War II, he would say, this is a modern day Western book, son. You need to read this. And because it's just as wild in this world as it was back in that world.
Yeah, probably more wild now. I look at Westerns now and think, 3 people killed at the OK Corral, and we made a big deal about it for 150 years.
Right.
And we So I'm not so sure this isn't the Wild West sometimes.
What kind of research do you do? Because I'm a research pig. I mean, I really dig in and dive in and get to the source.
Well, luckily, since I write what I really think of them as more anti-war novels. I try not to make war feel good to anybody in these books. I don't want to glorify it in any way, but luckily I spent 20 years with the Army, and during that I was able to get some really interesting assignments. I spent some time with Special Forces, and so my Green Beret characters in my book, I have, although it was many years ago, I have kind of a basic understanding of how they're composed and what these guys are like and things like that. So some of it is always stuff I already know. Like I said, I like history, so I've got some basic history, like the idea of how Pakistan was violently formed in 1947. And then the rest is, the internet's my friend here. In fact, I was just looking up the other day, okay, what's the length of a Pakistani tactical nuclear weapon, and no problem finding it. So it just, I think I spend as much time researching as I do writing.
Yeah. Oh, and taking notes. My God, that's one of the things I wish I could be a fly on the wall when an author is taking notes.
Well, I actually kind of do my research since I'm writing on the fly. I kind of do the research on the fly. So
right.
I do. In fact, I have some notes in front of me right now for my fourth novel that I'm working on. But I usually am using them right away. Occasionally, they'll sit there for a month or two, and I'll go, wait a minute, didn't I look that up already? And I'll dig them out. And it's. I don't know. I said I never intended to be a writer. It found me rather than me finding it. And so I have no idea what I'm doing. I just do it. It seems to work out really well. And I know with the Long November here, every professional review we've gotten so far has been fantastic. Oh my God, people have fallen all over themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's nice, but it's and that feels good. But the important thing is for the reader to one, like I said, be entertained, enjoy the book, and then hopefully be able to learn something from it. I'm not your history teacher or your current events teacher, but I want to provide something, for the reader that they can put the book down from time to time and say, wow, did I just read that? And think about the implications.
Yeah. See, my wife, who was a school teacher, when she looked at the book and she really dove into it, she goes, this book takes me someplace. She goes, I don't want to be in 2024 all the time. I want to be taken someplace. And she believes that the Long November really does take readers someplace.
Oh, gosh, your wife read it too. That's wonderful. And that's another point I want to make. I had a book club, a nearby book club, come in and read it, and these were all older ladies, yes. and they said right off, first thing they said is, this is not the kind of book I would have picked up and read, but oh my God, I love this. In fact, the woman in charge of the book club said, yeah, she said, I ended up canceling my hair appointment because I didn't want to stop reading, and I took that as a big compliment. If someone cancels their hair appointment, that it must have been important. And just as a side note, my wife was a teacher for 45 years.
There you go.
We've got that in common.
Yep, there you go. So I'm going to ask you kind of a music kind of question with the Red Line, in the way that when you have something as successful as the Red Line, it's like, how do you move beyond your Fleetwood Mac Rumors or Eagles Hotel California moment? Because they were so big in their creative life that they always were challenged on, how can I get the next big one? How can I get the next big one? I think the Long November, you did it. You're going to make the big one again.
Oh, wow, thank you. I don't really think about it that way. I know the Red Line was very critically acclaimed, and I felt like I did my best, and that's all I try to do with any of the books. Because I'm kind of a non-writer here, I'm not someone who went to get a master's in fine art and learn all the little tricks of the trade. I just do it by the seat of my pants, that I just try to write the best book I can write each time. And for me, the way to do that is to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. I think in the red line, I may have looked at some words as much as 50 times.
Yep.
Literally looked at the sentence 50 times. I want every word to be perfect. They never are. They're always a little bit, there's always a spot that's a little bit short. But my goal is to write books that, when I'm finished, the words literally jump off the page.
That's it.
They just,
That's exactly it. That goes right back to our first part of the conversation where I said, man, there's something about this book that moves us, man, and you keep us glued to that page.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it never hurts to hear that your work is being appreciated, and I really appreciate that.
Where can people go to find out more about you and everything that you're doing, especially with that fourth book on the way? I know we're not supposed to talk about it yet, but I mean, just the fact that you're writing it just inspires me as a writer.
Well, let's put it this way. I'll give you a big hint about the fourth book. Go back and look at the epilogue of The Long November, and that'll tell you where I'm going.
Really?
I don't know if you remember the epilogue in it or not, but but I'm kind of a dinosaur, as my kids and grandkids would say. But I do have a webpage, WaltGraggBooks.com, and that's Gragg. So Walt, Gragg.com. And I have two Facebook pages, Walt Gragg Books, and then just Walt Gragg. They can go to either one of them. We typically put similar information on both.
I love it. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, Walt.
Oh, absolutely. So I guess you said you also read The Red Line.
I just started it because I was pulled back into it because I wanted to. With The Long Winter, I went, wait a second. I went into this book not knowing the true history, so now I'm going into it.
Well, yeah, and you ought to try. I don't want to put a plug in here too big, but when you're done with that, if you enjoy it, try The Chosen One, because that's actually kind of the prequel to The Long November. The Long November uses the same main characters as The Chosen One, where the Red Line is a standalone.
Yep. See, I'm that person that starts in the middle of the story. Dang me, anyway.
It'll work this way. Don't worry.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay, Walt?
I'm just going to try to be. Today's go pick up groceries with my wife's day, so I don't know how brilliant that's going to be. I'm going to try to behave today. How's that?
I love it. Have fun, guy.